We got this story from ABC7. Grand jury could get subway chokehold death of Jordan Neely case next week. So they're actually, a law enforcement source familiar with the investigation tells ABC News the probe into the subway chokehold death is continuing. The case is likely to go to a grand jury next week. I will say this too. I believe the man's name is Daniel Penny. You are going to go to prison for a very, very long time.
I don't know. I defer.
I hope not.
Eyewitnesses, man. There's a lot of eyewitnesses.
I don't think that matters.
That's all that matters.
The entire conversations, the conversation that we've been having is that, like Kyle Rittenhouse, for instance, would be in prison for the rest of his life if it was true that the people he shot in self-defense were black. What we're likely going to see, like with the Ahmaud Arbery case, this man, I think his name is Daniel Penny, is likely going to be politically convicted. That's it. I mean, you've got AOC calling for him to be, she's calling him a murderer. She's not even saying it's reckless homicide or negligence. She's saying outright murder.
That's for a jury to decide.
Yeah,
Alex.
exactly.
But you've got someone with 13 million followers inciting violence in New York. This is what she's doing. AOC, I mean, she's inciting violence in New York City by calling this guy a murderer and obfuscating the facts. She wants people in New York. She is like the Joker. She is more like Lex Luthor, I guess.
Lex Luthor became president.
That's right, he did.
Here's an interesting thing we discovered actually while filming Infringed is a lot of people, especially on the progressive side of things, will look at these lower level crimes like the mental illness assaults on the subway. They'll be like, oh, it was just like a small thing, this and that. Or in Baltimore when we were filming, oh, they have possession of an illegal weapon. Well, they didn't kill anyone. They didn't rob anything. So we're just not going to. The progressive DAs would just be like, whatever, we're not even going to deal with these cases. They're like misdemeanors. But what occurs is when they don't deal with those lower level cases, they almost always end up becoming more high level criminals. It leads to murder. It leads to, horrible assaults, horrible robberies, violence, because you have to deal with it. If people start to like test the water a bit, I can get away with that. Test the water a bit more. You can't have people getting away with these low level misdemeanors constantly. You can't have things like illegal weapons carrying in Baltimore be just like not addressed whatsoever.
Well, this is why Giuliani's broken window policing was effective. Right. You have to stop the smaller crimes because it's not only the case, as you acknowledge, that people who commit these lower level crimes are in some sense testing the water and seeing what they can get away with, even just subconsciously. But it's also the case that if you know people are getting the book thrown at them for misdemeanors, you're going to think twice about a felony. You're going to think twice about committing a felony.
For sure.
I have mixed feelings about just going hard at people for like drug possession, marijuana. Are you kidding me? Well,
that's just stupid laws. Like, I don't think, like, I personally, I'm okay with Canada having marijuana legalized. I think the U.S. should follow suit. I just think that's...
Should legalize?
Yeah, I think it's wasting.
So,
it's wasting time. It's wasting money. There's so much real crime going on in this country that could be using up the courts.
But real quick, what we are seeing is that they're legalizing drug use. They're legalizing the right to set up homeless camps in public spaces, and then they're criminalizing self-defense.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So it's the inversion.
And also, when it comes to a federal war on drugs, I oppose it. I don't think there's anything wrong with a particular state saying we want to ban this drug or that drug. However, I don't think it's wise as a nation to have this bizarre two-faced halfway point where we say this drug is illegal or X, Y, and Z is illegal, but it's not that serious a crime. You're not really going to get into that much trouble. If something is a crime, it should really be a crime.
Yeah.
And that does mean we need to think twice about what laws we have, what we're willing to ban or make illegal. But once something's not legal, you really should get in serious trouble for breaking the law.
I agree with that. It makes a mockery of the judicial system or the entire legal system if you can't enforce or don't enforce a law in the book. So like Schedule 1 marijuana is a Schedule 1 narcotic in the United States federally. But it's like, no, we're not going to pursue it. They won't pursue it if it's legal in the state.
Let me show you this from Vivek Ramaswamy. In 2015, Jordan Neely kidnapped a 7-year-old girl. In 2019, he punched a 64-year-old man in the face. In 2021, he slugged a 67-year-old woman in the face as she exited the subway, breaking her nose and fracturing her orbital bone. He was arrested 44 times, but never faced real justice for terrorizing New Yorkers. The Manhattan DA shares responsibility for his death for creating an anti-law enforcement culture.
You read that kidnapped a 7-year-old kid thing, and I'm just like, no. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Well,
really
he
hard
did the moonwalk though. He moonwalked though.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm gonna have to look into the details
And-
of that because that makes me mad as hell.
And I can't play this video.
Is this the one of him pushing a woman?
No, this is a video of him screaming homophobic slurs at Joey Boots.
Oh, well, that's the
in New
real
York.
problem. Forget about the kidnapping.
Now, I will say this. This is a video from DC Drano where he says it's a video of Jordan Neely going viral, showing him violently assaulting a man using homophobic slurs, the F word. I've not confirmed this, so I don't know that it's true, but it does look like it's him. Like in the video, there's a video of a guy, looks just like Neely. He's doing Michael Jackson stuff. It looks like all the other videos. So I believe it's probably correct that it is him, but I want to make sure I have that caveat because, take it with a grain of salt.
The age of deepfakes is now.
But this is Joey Boots,
also
I know Joey Boots, and there's never a reason to have gone up, rest in peace, Joey. There was never a reason to scream at him and threaten him because this is not what Joey did. Joey had a video of like walking up to Tucker Carlson. He's like, he's filming. He walks around New York filming.
Oh, yeah, I remember that video.
And
Yeah,
Tucker is like, I'm fishing. And he's like, oh, cool. And he's like, Tucker Carlson, fishing in New York. And Tucker's just like, yeah. And that's it. Joey would do these videos and he would go up to news cameras and say, Baba Booey, Baba Booey. So when you see a video of this Neely guy, he was a violent, angry dude. He was mean. He attacked people. He kidnapped people. How is it that this, the villain, the perpetrator, is what AOC and the left defend?
You know how, because this is the behavior that they deem acceptable.
What?
This is the behavior they deem acceptable.
What, like mentally ill assault?
So if a person behaves violently in an insane way, in a reckless way, or just in a flat out immoral way, their entire philosophy and the entire philosophy of the left is the only reason that person behaved that way is because of certain systemic structures that push them in that direction. And so they're not the criminal. You are for not supporting left-wing policy.
Now that I understand, because that is an argument I've seen being made by people in that camp, if that's what's happening, is that society failed this guy. Flat out, he should have been either put in an institution of some sort or put in jail after his 44th crime, after maybe it's stealing the 7-year-old.
Well, it seemed like he wanted to go back to jail, right? He probably wants to get fed 3 times a day. And if you're in jail, that's what you get, right? So, because I saw something that, I saw a tweet, I don't know who said it, but, he was saying something like, I'll go back to jail, or I want to go back to jail. And it's like, well, if there was an asylum for somebody like this, he'd be taken care of, he'd be off the streets. Meanwhile, he's homeless, he's probably hungry.
You'd probably save money too in police resources constantly dealing with these issues, like sending them to an asylum. Vancouver, this is exactly why we got the problems there. They I think it was Riverside, there was a massive mental asylum, and they basically let everyone loose, shut it down. I know during the Reagan era, a ton of mental asylums were shut down as well. And it's just like, boom, on the streets. You think the resources that were going into those asylums aren't going into police investigations, solving these issues now?
Yeah. No. Oh, sorry. No.
Yeah,
continue.
go ahead.
Well, no, and this is something I touched on the show yesterday. That happened during the Reagan era. This was also a product of the Foucaultian deinstitutionalization movement, this idea on the left that mental illness is for the most part a social construct and we need to be more understanding. And it's true that in many mental health facilities, people were mistreated and there was a serious conversation that needed to be had there. However, in the 1950s, there were 500,000 people committed to mental institutions across the U.S. And then by the mid-'80s, that falls to 100,000.
Is that after Reagan let people out or before?
I think I'm not sure at which point the vast majority of the decrease in those numbers occurred, but I do know that between the 1950s and the 1980s, you just have a massive, I would say, decrease in the number of people in mental health facilities across the country. And part of that is a result of the reclassification of what it requires to get somebody committed. So it used to be you have to be proven to be unable to take care of yourself. And then they changed that standard to you have to have been proven to be a threat to yourself or others. Now, often when someone proves that they're a threat to themselves or others, it's too late. Someone's already been hurt. So I don't know if the standard should be they can't take care of themselves as it used to be, but I think the standard we have now clearly isn't working.
It looks like it was 81, when Reagan's ended the Mental Health Systems Act of 1980. He right when he got into office. Wow. Is that true? Right.
It's the same thing in California, I think, as well. He signed a bill. I think the Landris-Peterson.
Yeah, that's 1967 that he did that.
Yeah.
Did you know, this is random interesting fact. There's so many Reagan facts I learned while doing the Infringe stuff. He was one of the first people to pass one of the mass gun control acts.
As governor in California.
Yeah, Reagan was certainly far from perfect. Like, everyone praises him because of the way he stood up to communism, and I think that was great. And I will not take that from him. However, he was certainly not the best president America's had.
He had a lot of great one-liners, though. I think that's
that's
true. His legacy.
Boomers loved him.
He doubled the amount of federal employees, though, while standing against communism. Look it up. Look it up. He was one of the biggest government
was that
presidents
military,
in
though?
history.
Well, can I ask you? I would imagine most of that was an increase
No, it wasn't
in military positions.
No,
Really?
it was like paper pushers, whatever.
There's a lot of those in the military, though.
I've heard that he was like really
Does
didn't
that
like
need a
George Bush
corkscrew?
Senior.
Sorry?
Does that need a corkscrew?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you could open this.
there's a
I'm
corkscrew up
running
there.
out of alcohol.
Tim, don't open it for her. She's gonna put Diet
Well, I saw that she
Coke in
opened it, but then she didn't do
She's
anything.
gonna put Diet Coke in it, and it's a 25-year-old Scotch. Don't. Oh, good.
Oh,
there you
what
go.
did you do?
Good.
It's a real
Good.
slow process from here.
All right.
The cork broke,
how
in
is
case
this-
you're listening.
Like
think-
such an expensive booze, and it just
exactly.
breaks when I twist it slightly.
Because people like you who don't know what they're doing are going to ruin it, and so they intentionally design it. It's like child-proofing, but for people who put Diet Coke in their alcohol.
Now, what Reagan?
Good old Ronald.
I heard that Reagan hated George Bush. Not maybe not hated, but really didn't like George Bush Senior.
Really?
At all. I think they ran against each other.
Oh, in the primaries,
And
probably, right? I
supposedly,
guess that would make
the-
sense.
And then like what the deep state went to him and was like, "You're going to have him as your."
assassination attempt, and then after that,
He made him his VP.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's true, but
Well.
I've heard that story as
Yeah,
well.
so this Reagan guy, I mean, was he one of those guys who's like going in with all the righteousness, and then as soon as he gets in there, like,
Interesting.
here's your playbook, by the way, and he's like, I don't think so. Then
you.
bang bang, and then he's like, okay, I'll play ball.
Well, this is what's crazy is even when he wasn't, because I was getting in a debate with my dad about this. Love you, Dad. And we were talking about Reagan and gun control, and he's like, he was more Democrat early on. He probably changed his mind. And I'm like, yeah, he did a lot of good things in government. But actually, even when he was out of office, he wrote to lawmakers supporting the assault weapons ban that Biden passed, saying, I support this, put this through.
Reagan?
And that was
94.
after, 94.
Well,
that was after
and-
he was out of office.
All right, and this is what we have to remember. Firstly, Reagan said something. It's quite a famous quote, and this is something that many people who are considered centrist or 2010 era liberals say today. What Reagan said was, I am considered conservative just for holding to the liberal principles that I had 20 years ago, something along those lines. Reagan was not the far-right conservative that the left made him out to be.
was
And we should
awful.
understand that.
Gun
but we should
control,
understand
no-fault
that.
divorce?
Well, because look at it. I mean, everyone thinks Reagan was this far-right conservative president. Okay, well, they call Tim Pool far-right today.
Yeah,
So, of
exactly,
course, in the
dude.
80s,
The
when they were
Overton
calling...
window.
Yeah, when they were calling Reagan far-right, that didn't mean anything then either.
Wow.
I want to. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.